All right, we are live. How's it going?
It's going great. Thanks a lot for having me here.
Yeah, definitely. And is it Akash? Is that how you pronounce it?
It's Akash.
Akash. Okay,
Yeah.
Akash. Um, I saw you drinking something there. Do you got coffee or tea?
Water, actually.
Oh, water. Okay, okay.
Yeah,
And you're in India, right?
that's right. I'm from a city called Hyderabad in South India.
Okay. And so I talked to somebody else from India, and they were talking about how in India, even though a lot of people don't eat, a lot of people are vegetarian. Um, in India, like milk is sacred to drink. Like everybody drinks milk. Was that tough to give up?
Yeah, that was the worst. That was the toughest. Although I turned vegan in one day, uh, the culture of milk ingrained here is quite a lot. We are as far away from a vegan society as could be possible, especially with respect to dairy and yogurt and derivatives of dairy. So
Gotcha.
it's very
Uh,
difficult to go to a restaurant and actually have dairy-free food.
gotcha. So you learned how to cook then. Do you cook a lot of your food?
Actually, no, but I have a very accommodating family, so we have switched to all vegan alternatives.
Oh, awesome. Cool. All right. So let's get to it. So you have a bunch of questions for me, and I liked all of them that I saw. So go ahead and ask whichever ones you want, and if you have other questions that weren't on that list, go for that. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is new for me, right? This is the first time on any platform, and veganism as such, I've only been vegan for the last few months,
Okay.
and I have started doing activism for the last 1 month, street outreach. So my first question for you was why how you came about naming your channel Reasonable Vegan.
Okay. Yeah. So I have another channel, just my name, Carson Hughes, and I've had that for over a year, and that one's about politics and philosophy in general. And
Okay.
since veganism is a big topic for me, I did a handful of vegan videos. I hosted some debates on there, but I mostly focused on other political things. And as soon as the Alex O'Connor thing happened 3 months ago, I started making a bunch of vegan videos on that other channel, and I started defending Alex O'Connor because I thought people were being very unreasonable with their reaction to him, and they were like saying they wished he would die and a handful of things like that. And I got a lot of support on that channel for vegan stuff. I started getting a lot of subs, but then people that went to that channel for vegan stuff, as soon as I put out talks I did on like abortion and circumcision and stuff like that, they started unsubbing. And then as soon as I put vegan videos up, all the people that were there for like the abortion and circumcision and death penalty type talk, they started unsubbing. So I
Okay.
figured for now, while being a small channel over there, that I might as well make a separate vegan channel so I can focus on veganism there. And the name basically came from finding so many vegans to be unreasonable when it came to Alex O'Connor and various other situations where I'd watch people be what I would call unreasonable.
Yeah. So, in your opinion, what would be the reasonable way to approach a situation like Alex O'Connor's?
Um, it would be something like, so I saw a handful of comments to Alex saying, no judgment, but I am curious why you stopped being vegan, what led to it. So just being friendly and genuine and being curious what led to it, and then um, so anything that's not attacking, like I don't think it's reasonable to say that you wish somebody was dead, or to say to call somebody a monster and say, oh, you're taking all these lives, because in my mind the reasonable take on Alex would be that most people grew up and spend their whole lives eating meat, dairy, and eggs. And Alex, being an ethical person that's into ethics and philosophy, thought it through after being challenged and decided that he wanted to stop harming animals. And so he stopped eating meat, dairy, and eggs, just like the rest of us vegans. And due to certain circumstances, As far as we know, he added some back. We don't know if that means like one fish a month or one fish a week, one fish a day. We know there's a little more than fish, but we don't know to any extent that he is causing a wild amount of harm to animals. And so in my mind, like anybody doing something is good. If even the idea of like meatless Mondays or whatever, because I know animals can suffer and I don't want them to. And so if anybody cuts back or is spreading messages about it, like for example, I know a lot of people were thrown off by his talk with Peter Singer, and they think Peter Singer was saying outrageous things. But at very least, looking at Alex, Alex was saying a lot of amazing things about how we should view animals and animal ethics. And so, him having this large platform, making people, whether they become vegan or not, making them think about animal ethics, I just think he's such an important voice that I don't think people should lie and hide their feelings because he's an important voice, but I think their feelings should change based off how valuable Alex is, like how important he is to the animals. Like knowing that when he talks and people hear him, that's going to save animal lives, and it's gonna make people either cut back on eating animals or go vegan or vegetarian or whatever. I feel like that should make people not attack him. And so I think the reasonable thing would be to not attack him.
Yeah, got you. Actually, this happened a little very shortly after I turned vegan. So my initial reaction was a little bit heated. In fact, one of the responses I gave to your video was that this is invariably going to cause more harm, not to animals, but to the vegan movement.
Mm.
So, what is your opinion on that?
Um, I definitely think people seeing vegans attack him will cause harm to the vegan movement.
Definitely.
I, but if you're wondering him stopping being vegan, if that will hurt the vegan movement, in a some way, yes. Anybody that sees somebody go vegan and stop being vegan, it might make them question if it's okay, if it's achievable to be vegan and stay healthy. But overall, I don't think so. Like the only way to know for sure would be to see how many people that he's turned vegan, how many people that see his videos that will turn them vegan in the future, even though he's not vegan, and compare that to how many people truly want to be vegan, but because of Alex, they go, "Oh, I was going to, but he stopped." I don't think there's any likelihood that it's a higher number that it would hurt the vegan movement because a lot of people that were attacking him and some people that were nice to him were saying that he turned them vegan. I saw hundreds of people's comments saying, "Oh, Alex turned me vegan. This is sad to see. I'll be vegan forever." And so I mean that is what that is. And if Alex turned 1,000 people or 10,000 people vegan, then those 10,000 people are going to be spreading the message and sharing veganism with other people. So it's definitely not a number that we can quantify, but I would say that it's reasonable to assume he's been more helpful than harmful.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yep. Uh,
Somebody has a question for you specifically in the comments, and I've
sure.
seen this word, but I don't know what exactly it is. The concept of, and then it says AHIMSA.
Ahimsa.
Okay. Somebody wants to know how the concept of that is viewed in India.
Uh, Ahimsa basically means non-violence. So that's all there is to it. It is a form of living which excludes violence of all forms. So when
Mm.
taken to its extreme, some religions like Jains, certain Buddhists, they believe that they do not have to cause harm or they do not have to exhibit violence in any situation, right? So
Oh,
that's
okay.
I think I'm not an expert in this, but ahimsa basically is non-violence, and in fact, we have shirts which say "Dairy is not ahimsa."
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because we firmly believe that there is a lot of violence going on there.
Mm-hmm.
So if in at least in my belief, if someone professes to follow ahimsa, then veganism is the only way
Gotcha.
forward.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So can we go to the next question?
Yes.
Yeah. So this was regarding the debate you had with George, I think, where you were debating with in the hypothetical where you had to choose between a person and a dog in a place where there's fire, right?
Hmm.
Mhm. And whom would you choose?
I would choose a person.
Yeah. By what metric would you use to decide that?
Basically, my understanding that, well, my knowledge that humans have a want for the future. So it's complicated because the suffering matters as well. So, well, let's say, okay. So in the hypothetical, can we assume that whoever is not saved, the smoke is going to essentially knock them out, and they're not going to be suffering from burning alive?
No, both of either of them, whichever person you decide to save, the other person is going to die a horrible death.
Okay. Okay, so that does factor it in. Okay, so in both cases, the dog and a person can suffer, and I don't know if there's any way to detect that the level of pain would be worse in a human or not. So I'm going to assume that even though it's a dog and it's smaller, for what it feels, I'm gonna call the pain equal for both. So if the pain is equal for both, and therefore stopping the pain of either is it's kind of equal the suffering level, so I can ignore that. So saving one or the other, I do think it matters if somebody has like a care of existing or a will to live. Now, since we cannot know for sure if animals care that they exist or have a will to live, I don't think we should harm them. I don't think it's fair to, if we could just snap our fingers and end the life of an animal. I don't think it's fair to do that just because it doesn't have a will to live. But it makes me care less about its existence. So, like me, I know I want to live to tomorrow and the next day and years from now. I want to see my kids grow up. I want to see grandkids and stuff like that. Where a dog or other animals, they might have this instinct to survive because that's they evolved that way. And so if something's trying to hurt them, they will stop that thing from hurting them. But if we could add as much intelligence as possible to get, not intelligence, but if we could add the ability to communicate with a dog, if I could make a dog speak English and anything that it knows, if I could say, do you care that you exist? Do you want to exist tomorrow? Um, if that dog were to say, I don't know what existing is, and they even in dog knowledge couldn't understand existing, then I would say I don't care if it continues to exist. Similarly to a person, if there is a person that I know dies, like on my street corner, if somebody got killed but there was no suffering, my, I've thought about this experiment before. The only thing that I can imagine of why I feel sad would be, one thing would be that if there's people that love that person, they're going to be sad they're gone. So let's imagine nobody cares about that person. The other thing would be, I know I want to live. So I think maybe they wanted to live. And so I would feel bad they didn't get to continue. Anything else would just be me putting my ideas on them. Like I could know a movie's coming out next week and I can say it's sad they didn't get to see it, but I don't even know if they wanted to see it. So that doesn't matter. So the only immoral thing that I can logically think of for ending something's life would be that thing not wanting to end. So since I know humans have that and I don't know about animals, I choose the human. But I think, even though that's my main reason, even if I didn't have that reason, I think if I just had to choose one to one, a dog or a human, I think I would choose the human anyway, due to maybe a respect of my own species. I would want somebody to choose me. So I think it's maybe important to have this value of our own species, but I'm not sure.
Okay. No, because if somebody says that they are going to save the dog, considering that the dog is incapable of inflicting harm to somebody else in the future, whereas we do not know whether the human is going to do good or net have a net negative impact on society later on, right?
Hmm.
So, if that argument has been made that they will save the dog, I find that problematic, because if I remove the dog from the equation and now just put the man inside who's in the burning building, and the choice is between saving that person or not saving that person, then even then the same argument would hold.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Because then also you would say I wouldn't save the person because there's going to be net because the dog doesn't matter. The dog is dying. The dog is a victim. The dog doesn't care whether I'm saving the man or I don't want to save the man. The dog is dying anyway. So I'm just removing the dog from the equation. Now, if I have somebody who's willing to always save the dog instead of the person, then if they are given the choice whether to save a person or not to save a person, what would their answer be?
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that is a good point. And I think this comes down to if people had more information, some people would say if the person was a carnist, they would not save them because they're going to harm people. And in my mind, I have not been convinced that that's the route to go. There's a comment here that pertains to what we're talking about, so I wanted to bring it up to get your thoughts. So
Sure.
has vegan, which anybody listening that doesn't know Has Vegan should find him and subscribe to his channel. He does amazing stuff. That's HAZ and then vegan. But anyways, he says dogs are persons slash people too. Animals are not its. So I am curious your thoughts on this. I mean, obviously, I don't think that's accurate wording to say that they're persons or people, but I've seen a lot of people that think it's not good for us to continue to say it when referring to animals. Now, this is just a matter of semantics. I don't think there's any actual harm, but so the idea is that if we refer to them as them, or is that them? Is that what we should use instead of it? That it makes people not view it as a thing. So, anyways, do you think that matters?
Well, I'm a doctor, and for most of my life, even while referring to babies, sometimes I use the word it, not as a
Mm-hmm.
form of disrespect or this thing, but at that moment, whatever came to my head, and if I was not sure about the gender, when I actually deal with animals individually, I always make sure to refer to them as he or she or whatever gender that animal is. But for me, it's mostly semantics. I mean, I don't think as long as your intent is to be vegan, uh, but this is entirely my point of view. I don't have any evidence or statistics to back the claim that using it or not using it is going to make a difference. So I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a fair point. If I could see if I could magically know if it would be better for the vegan movement or for how people treat animals to change my language, then I would. But I'm similar to you. I don't know if other people are like us, but when I talk about a baby, I say it. When I talk about an animal, I say it. But for some reason, when I talk about a 5-year-old, I won't say it anymore. So humans, I'll start saying they if I don't know a gender. And but for some reason, maybe the less I can communicate with the person, I or the dog or the animals, I say it, and I don't mean any disrespect. And so it's something we should think about. I think there's nothing wrong with Has pointing it out, but similar to how I think people were unreasonable with Alex, I don't think anybody should be unreasonable with people on this topic. If somebody says, "Hey, I think it would be best if you didn't say it," and then the other person goes, "Yeah, I know what you mean. I get it, but that's just what I do, and I don't mean any offense, so I'm going to keep doing it." I would recommend not pushing the person on it. Uh, Squabbles like that, I don't think matter too much. But yeah,
Yeah,
but yeah, what's
one,
yeah?
yeah, go on.
Oh, I was just going to ask what your next question was, but you could say whatever you're going to say.
Yeah, yeah, I've been communicating with Has. Hopefully, we'll be doing a video sometime soon, and I'll bring this up. But one thing is, if it is definitely proved to be, I mean, shown that using it is going to be harmful, then I have absolutely no problem making that effort, because it's a small effort to uh, codify that in your head and call them only he and she. I don't think that's such a big of an effort for someone to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Also, so Has said, if you use they as a genderless word for referring to humans, why not extend that to non-animals? And then Has also says, if you view veganism as a social justice issue, language is paramount and important. The reason I wanted to read those is I think something that I noticed that's happening with us smaller channels. There's a handful of us that started our channels or at least got active with them about 3 months ago when I started mine, and Haz is one of them, and Christina Van Beek and Vegan Pundit, and anyways, there's a whole bunch. There's probably about a dozen or 2 dozen of us, and we all keep doing conversations on each other's channels, and then we'll talk to people like you that don't have channels maybe soon. And I think this is one of the coolest things anybody should do. Everybody should start a YouTube channel and have conversations. Now, making separate videos where you make like well planned out videos, that's really cool too. It's not my thing. Because in my mind, what changes the world is conversations. But even within the vegan movement, us challenging each other on these ideas, like the word it can lead to a better future. Now, I don't think I'm going to change my mind on this thing, and hopefully people don't view me too poorly for that. But I've heard many things from many vegans on YouTube that make me rethink my ideas. Even this morning, I thought of an idea I've never thought of because I was reading a question by somebody that follows my channel named Gigi, and I love that these conversations keep leading us to figuring out best ways for how to view animals and view veganism. And anyways, I just want to point out that we should keep having these conversations and push each other, but not at a level that's maybe negative. It's just throwing out ideas and seeing what we each agree with.
Got fair enough. Yep. So I'll proceed to the next question, which yeah. So this is the debate against outreach and taking a welfarist position versus a rights-based position, and which is do you think will be more beneficial in the short term and in the long term?
Gotcha. Well, so I think a welfare position is a rights position. We, depending on the level of welfare, that is a right. So if we're talking about something like cutting out the teeth and tails of pigs for factory farming, and let's say that I wanted to spend a lot of my time advocating for legal changes. I don't know if you remember, Peter Singer was talking about how in the UK there were some new laws involving like chicken farms and stuff like that.
Yes.
So similar to those things, and I love when I hear that little wins like that happen. I would love it if it was illegal to cut off tails and teeth of pigs, and therefore, because they would cannibalize each other, to make it illegal to cram them in such tiny cages that they would cannibalize each other. And somebody would call that a welfare approach. I'm not pushing the ultimate vegan message when I talk about that. I'm pushing the idea of legislation, making it so it is illegal to cut off teeth and tails. Now, you can call that welfare, but that is also rights. If I don't have a tail, but if my teeth were getting cut off and my ears were getting cut off, I would want the right to have my teeth in my ears. And so, similar to how slavery used to be okay and women used to not be able to vote and witches used to be burned at the stake, if we had laws that were making it so I was a slave of some kind and my teeth were getting cut off and my ears were getting cut off, I would view it as a rights-based focus to make it so even though I could legally be a slave and somebody can own me, they can't legally cut my teeth off and my ears off. That if they were found to have done that, they would get a fine or go to jail or something like that. And we call that welfare, but welfare is a right. We have a right, or at least a right as far as what we want. Us vegans want rights for animals. Same would go for humans. We want the right to not be harmed or killed. So it doesn't mean that when you fight for rights, you only fight for the right to live. You fight for the right to live well, I would say. So anyways, I wanted to point that out, but still the question comes down to, is it better to focus on something like the welfare rights versus the right to live? I think it's kind of both. Anytime I talk to anybody about any ideas within welfarism or reductionism, the idea of veganism will come up. The overall liberation of animals, that will come up. But I would say it seems clearly obvious to me that the push for individual legislation has got to be more important. Because once something's put into law, then that's official. It doesn't matter if people agree with it or not. It becomes something that is illegal to do. It's like the most important thing in any society is that it's illegal to kill people. And even though some people might still kill people, it's very important that that's in law because it makes it so people are less likely to, and then if they do and they get caught, they get punished for it. Um, so, anyways, yeah.
Yeah, I'll circle back to the welfare thing, but a little bit. I wanted to ask you about the law part of it. So, if you had to grant laws affording rights to animals, what would they be?
Okay, so right now, I do not feel comfortable making laws prohibiting the killing or eating of animals. I think that will come with time and more studies to make it concrete that we don't need to consume animals. So if I were to have laws go into place now, I think I feel comfortable putting laws in place against dairy. I think it would be safe to say that it should be illegal to take dairy from cows. It should be illegal to remove calves from their mothers. I would even extend it to I think it should be illegal to forcefully impregnate animals. If farms have cows, they basically have to keep the cows so natural to the point where they're able to mate on their own. Um, I would definitely remove the cutting of tails and teeth. Um, Let's see. I wish I knew I think one thing we'd have to look into is the numbers of what makes animals closer to like what they would do in nature. So if you remember, Peter Singer was talking about the amount of chickens that could be in an area, that if you had a certain amount, it would make the grass not grow any further, based on how fast they eat it and trample it. Where if you had a certain number, is like a number per hectare or whatever, then the grass would grow. They're running around, they're having a good time, and then whatever happens happens. So I would say at this point I don't feel comfortable outlawing the eating of animals. That I want to change hearts and minds. But as far as legal harm, like I don't think we should be able to just randomly stab a cow and have it bleed out or stab a dog. So I think anything involving unneeded harm is not good. Now my overall view would be that I don't think anybody needs to eat animals, harm animals, have any connection to them. All animals should be removed from us, and we should never force an animal to be in a certain area. But legally, what I listed is about where I stand. But I also would add in a legal element to owning pets. I would say that I feel more comfortable saying that it should be legal to eat animals, but not legal to own pets. So,
Okay,
yeah.
interesting. So, couple of things. One thing is when you're talking about welfare and especially practices like cutting of tails and removal of teeth, you mentioned, right?
Hmm.
So I have actually read in your comment section and a few others that this is actually done for the welfare of the other animals within the same thing, right? So when you're arguing for an individual right of one pig to not have its teeth removed or tail cut off, you're automatically arguing against the rights of the other ones who are getting bitten, whose tails are getting bitten. So what would be your response for that?
Yeah, so if something needs to be done to cause less harm, that's good, even though it's bad. So spaying and neutering domesticated cats and dogs, it's a horrible act. I don't think that should have to happen. But since it's causing less animals to be bred into existence, it's a good thing. So if the laws allow a certain amount of like pigs to be in an area to where they're biting each other's tails off and therefore getting infected, and it's causing more suffering, then I get the idea of adding that in. But I think that's based only on cramming them into small areas. I think if you had, I don't think they cut the teeth and tails of like free range pigs. If they have pigs like on a farm, even though they're going to eat those pigs eventually, the pigs just run around, they do their thing, they don't harm each other, they have plenty of food. I don't know if the cannibalizing of pigs is based off only how small of an area they're in, or if they're accidentally or intentionally starved or anything like that. But yes, I do get that bad things might have to happen to prevent more bad things. I would just want to know the numbers. If I was wrong, if any pigs at all living near each other are going to eat each other's tails, and cutting their teeth out stopped that, then I guess that would be a good thing. But I just don't think that's the case.
All right. I'll have to do some reading up on that
Yeah.
uh, to find that out. So, if I were in charge of a, let's say, medium industrial scale farm, right, where farming is animal farming is going on, and I want to have a more welfareist perspective, so I invest a lot of money into R&D to improve the welfare part of the animals, right?
Hmm.
So maybe I hire a scientist who makes vertical cages or make sure each cage is like a mini paradise for the animal, right?
Hmm.
So that could be one situation. My question is it better to spend all that R&D on actual welfare rather than looking at alternative sources of food production itself instead of animals, the plants?
I think we would have to think of what will have a better outcome, what's going to affect animals more. And we can't know for sure. So we have to use our reasoning and figure out what's going to have a bigger effect. I would say I can even take it to an extreme. I would say, so if I was a millionaire or a billionaire, um, if I couldn't change laws effectively or hearts and minds of people, I think one of the best things I could probably do is find places that I thought were truly free range, grass fed, like good companies. And even though I would never purchase animal products for myself, if I knew somebody was not going to stop eating animal products, if I could purchase millions of dollars of meat and eggs that came from less suffering than other places and gave it to people that were going to eat the animal products anyways, and therefore those people weren't paying the factory farms, I think that would be a good thing. And so that's probably the extreme I could bring it to while being good. It's the good version of purchasing meat. If I had a friend that could not afford to get free range stuff and they weren't going to stop eating animals, if I could supply all the meat and eggs they were going to eat for the rest of their lives with stuff that was causing less suffering, I would think that would be a good approach to do. Now, I don't think that would be where somebody should put all of their efforts. I think efforts are probably best put into something like conversations and changing hearts and minds. Like the reason we hear, I don't know what the big topics are in India or how voting affects politicians and whatnot in India. But in the U.S., the things we hear about the most are things like abortion laws, like Roe v. Wade being overturned, and right now it's really big talking about circumcision and talking about global warming and all these things. Because the majority of people are talking about it and have an interest in it, it makes the politicians that want to be voted in taking those up as things to talk about. So I think what we need to do and put our focus in is anything that will get the majority of people talking about a topic. So if we vegans spend time going out trying to make more vegans, and that makes a couple vegans here and there, that's great. But what if we vegans went out and started, what if every vegan tomorrow just started like talking on social media, talking to people in real life, talking about the situation with pigs and their teeth and tails getting cut. And all these meat eaters are all like, I love meat. I'm not going to give up meat. I love bacon even, but I do not want a baby pig to have its teeth cut out. And you get everybody in the world talking about this thing, and then politicians put that into place. I think that likely is the best focus, or something like that, something that is most likely to actually happen.
Well, I would argue that if I had millions of dollars, I would invest it partially in, as you said, changing hearts and minds. But I would invest rest of it in something like maybe lab grown meat and give it free of cost to those who are not going to change their minds.
Definitely. I think lab grown meat is probably going to be the thing. Because once people eat lab grown meat or go vegan, they look back and go, oh man, it was horrible what people did.
Yeah, I
But
didn't have.
when people currently eat animals, they can't think of it that way. So I think lab grown meat will turn the world vegan. So I was going to a worst case scenario that I thought was still good, which was buying the free range stuff. But I think the best case scenario is probably that. I don't know if I can top that. If I had billions of dollars and I could throw away $1 billion, I would put that right into lab grown meat for sure.
Yeah, fair enough. So would I. So the next part is okay. I am not an expert in any uh, uh, to any extent as far as philosophy is concerned, but I think I heard about deontology and the different forms of consequentialism from I think Jeremy Gold from one of his earlier talks with Christina. And then I started watching your talk with him. So where does your ethical framework fall? I mean, if it does anywhere.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's kind of interesting. I'm glad you asked that because I think a lot of people think I'm utilitarian, especially when it comes to animals, and I might have even have thought that myself. But honestly, even though I'm obsessed with philosophy and I love talking about philosophical things, I don't usually go to labels. So, from my understanding of utilitarianism, it's it's it, it's the good for all. So, like, if one of the best ways I've heard it talked about as far as why utilitarian is not good is if pleasure outweighs pain, then if five guys sexually assaulted one lady and the five guys got so much more pleasure compared to the pain the lady got, then a utilitarian calculus would call that good. But that's not how I view things in any form. I don't I think pleasure is good. We all seek pleasure, but I don't really care about people getting pleasure. I just care about people causing suffering and harm to others. So I don't view any of my thoughts as a utilitarian way. Um, I Everything's rights to me. So if animals are legally allowed to be harmed and they're being harmed, the reason I want people to reduce and there to be good welfare for animals is because I want them to have the rights, those rights. And it's easier to extend to have those rights for humans because we already have them. And so I guess it would be deontology, but I don't know. It's not something I've really looked into. It's not a term I really use. I just I think rights are man made. I think nature doesn't care about us. Nature doesn't give us any rights. We individually afford rights to each other. If I can legally, so we I don't know if you guys have freedom of speech in India.
Yes.
Do you have? Okay, I know a lot of countries don't, and so I've heard that the U.S. is kind of unique in that sense. But so if you have freedom of speech, we have freedom of speech. I could be within 10 feet of you and talking to somebody else, and I could say something horrible about you, but I don't want to offend you, so I would afford you the right to not being offended by me to not do that, even though I legally can. And so, same thing, I can legally eat animals, but I afford them the rights personally. But each of us individually doing that, in a sense, means nothing to me. I care about if there's an actual action that is bad. The law has to come in and take care of that. Something needs to be put into law. And so, anyways, I'm just rambling now, but hopefully that explains it. I don't think I'm a utilitarian in any form. What do you think?
I would say whether you are utilitarian, consequentialist, or deontology, your framework should include sentient beings. That's the only thing.
Hmm.
As long as it includes sentient beings, then you will naturally and reasonably end up at an with an abolitionist perspective. I mean, I do not see
Yeah.
any way of not ending up there.
Yeah, no, I agree. Let me bring a hypothetical to you, and then I'm going to bring up a couple questions over here.
Sure.
Hypothetically, if humans were carnivores, so not omnivores, if we had to eat meat to survive, would you say that based on our ability to reason, we should just let our species die off? Or would you say that it's acceptable for humans to eat animals?
If if humans were obligate carnivores,
Yeah.
yep. Then that's a great question because I am antenatal, right? I do not believe in having children. If I ever wanted, I would adopt, but I'm not going to ask anybody or force anybody or even tell anybody to do this, right?
Hmm.
So I'll have to think about this, but I'm kind of yeah, that's a tough one. I'm not
Yeah.
sure what from a deontologic perspective, if I have to afford non-human animals the same value and same rights that I afford to human animals,
Hmm.
then that will be a problem because then I
Yeah.
would have no justification in eating or consuming animals for my survival.
Okay. Well,
At,
let me
at,
make
at
it a
the same
little
time, yeah,
Let me make it a little simpler for you. So it would be tough to decide if you would be willing to kill 100 animals a year to survive if you're a carnivore. But what if you were stuck on an island and you were hoping to be rescued and you had to eat, like, say, 10 or 20 chickens or pigs or something to survive? Would
I
you do
wouldn't.
that? Oh, you wouldn't? Okay. Well, I guess that answers the question then. It doesn't answer the question if you think it's acceptable for others, but at least for yourself. So that's
In fact,
good.
if there was a human instead of animals in that desert island and me,
Mhm.
then I would probably enter a contract with the human and decide whoever dies first will be eaten by the other person. But I wouldn't have such. I cannot do that with animals. Second
Okay.
thing is, I'm sure if there are 10 animals, I'm sure they are eating something. So I'll figure out somewhere to eat what they are eating instead of eating them.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. But luckily, in the hypothetical, you can't get around it. You can't find
I
what
got
they're
it. I got
eating.
it. Yeah, I got that.
But okay, so that's interesting, and I don't know if people would act differently than they claim in a situation like that. But I take your word for it.
Yeah,
So I
definitely. There's no way of you knowing whether I would be for
right.
anybody to know. That's an unfalsifiable thing. So I get that.
Yeah. So yeah, I like so in my mind, I try to be as realistic as possible. I'm pretty sure I know I want to survive and live, so I would kill and eat any animal and probably any human. I like don't be scared to be on an island with me. I would hold out as long as I could, but I would probably kill humans to eat them, and that would just be a survival thing. And so I think when it comes the reason I if humans were carnivores, I would still give other humans rights and I wouldn't eat them. But I would eat whatever animals I needed to, and I wouldn't eat more than I needed to. I wouldn't be an overweight carnivore. Is because I think if the most important thing to us is survival, then we have to have a contract with each other, us reasoning people like within our species of in our society, we have these laws and rules. You don't kill me, I don't kill you. You don't steal from me, I don't steal from you. You don't hurt me, I don't hurt you. And then we feel safe. And outside of that, then when it comes to animals, because they can't have that contract with us, I can't tell a lion, you don't kill me, I don't kill you. They don't understand that. So with animals, that's just us extending, affording rights to them of what we won't do to them. And I think that's a moral thing. Where the human thing, I don't think that's a moral. I think it can be moral as well. I can morally choose not to kill a human on an island. But the reason I mostly won't harm a human and I'll harm animals before humans is because of this mutual benefit. But then when it comes to animals, it's a moral thing. And so I will eat what I need to eat to survive, or I'll harm what I need to harm to make shelter. I'll cut down a tree, even if there's birds living in it, because I need shelter for my survival. But once I'm fine and my loved ones are fine and fellow humans are fine, I would hate to ever put any harm on any animal, and because that's just such nonsense. People are so addicted to meat, they love the taste that they're willing to just not think about it. But as soon as you think about it, it's such a silly idea that you have all this food that you can be perfectly healthy on and survive on, but you would harm these animals. You'd cut teeth out. You'd put chicks in grinders. It's just so despicable. And I can't remember what the original question was, but I'm going to stop rambling right there.
The question was the desert hypothetical with animals.
Oh yeah.
Um, in fact, with your hypothetical regarding us being obligate carnivores, I would be totally fine if there was contract between, let's say, terminally ill people and people who are going to definitely die, and they voluntarily offer of their. I mean, I would prefer eating them rather than to eat animals, or because
Hmm.
for me, eating animals would be akin to, in that situation, would be akin to eating children. So
Okay.
where I cannot enter into a contract with them. So yeah, that would be my solution in that case.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, no, it's complicated. I only brought that up because we were talking about laws and extending the rights to animals. And the reason I brought it up is I don't think our studies are as concrete as they would need to be for me to put laws saying that we can't eat animals. And so that's why I brought it to the extreme of, if we were carnivores, how would we treat that? And so yeah. Um,
Yeah, got you.
there was a question I was going to ask. Somebody brought something up. He's doing Holocaust. Somebody said reasonable vegan said he would Holocaust billions of animals. I don't know what that's referring to. They said people eating lab grown meat is not vegan, and then there's an image of a face palm. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I'm assuming okay. So there was recently some scientists grew a ball of mammoth meat, right, from a mammoth fossil.
Mm-hmm.
Not for eating purposes, but for just to prove it can be done scientifically, whatever it is. I'm sure it's not healthy for eating it, but if we were going to use, let's say, fossils of animals to grow lab grown meat, it is going to be a food industry with, and any food industry will have its suffering. I'm not talking about animal suffering, any suffering, but
Mm-hmm.
I do not see why it is less vegan than uh, not killing animals.
Yeah, yeah. The only, I think the only problem is like the biopsy. So the thing you're referring to, which I've heard that there is lab grown meat options of not needing a biopsy, but for a while it was talked about of how you would have to, inject a needle into a cow, do a biopsy, pull a piece out, and then grow it from there. And I would say, even though yes, that's harming a cow doing the biopsy, like who cares compared to the amount of animals that are dying. But on top of that, maybe one of the things I'd be curious if David is in here. This guy I talked to quite a bit named David that says it's not vegan to eat roadkill. I wonder if the idea that since the original idea of veganism is to not view animals as a commodity, then the growing of animals would be the same thing. It's animal flesh derived from growing in a lab what is the same as inside of an animal. But I think it's so silly, and I mean no offense when I call it silly. I think it's silly to care about something that isn't sentient. So lab grown meat, not sentient. Roadkill, not sentient. Somebody doing taxidermy of having like an animal art, whatever. It's if it's not alive, it's not sentient. I just don't care about it, especially compared to what we currently have.
Yep. I wouldn't consider lab grown meat, especially with my hypothetical, as anything to do with sentience. As far as roadkill is concerned, I wouldn't consume roadkill, only because I'm sure it will, if it's allowed to decompose. I guess it will help more creatures around, and I don't need to eat roadkill at all.
Hmm.
I have to do research on taxidermy, because instinctively I would say I'm against it, but I haven't thought about it at all. But with
Gotcha.
lab grown meat, that too from fossils, if it's possible, then I have no issues with
Gotcha.
as long
Um,
as there's no victim or a sentient victim inside.
Gotcha. I'm going to read one more comment before your next question. So Daniel said to me, "Your idea of supporting free range is odd. Why not buy land, plant food forests?" So the reason for support, I don't support free range. I look at things as this rather than this. I would rather, if a pig's going to be eaten, gets to keep its teeth up until it's eaten. I would rather less suffering than more suffering. And so, even though, yes, I can buy land and make a food forest, that would be good for homeless people. That would be good for non homeless people that need food. And it might be good for, if I'm talking somebody into being vegan, they can have free food from this forest. The reason I would support with my money free range eggs or something like that is for the people that are going to buy them anyways. So if every time, let's say I knew that this farm was truly free range, not just the label, is free range in the way that Peter Singer talks about it in that conversation. If I could buy up all the free range eggs to support this company that has a truly free range one, and every time somebody went to buy factory farm eggs, I said, you don't have to buy it, here's a free dozen. And assuming in this hypothetical, nobody's going to eat more because I'm doing this, they're just going to get it free from me and not put money into it, then that's going to have the demand for those factory farmed eggs. The demand is going to go down. Those companies will not have the chickens in horrible conditions, and the eggs that people eat will be coming from less suffering than more. So that would cause less suffering than if I purchased land to make a food forest. But also, I'd love to make a food forest. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm ready for your next question.
Yeah. So with regard to eggs, I'm sure if Mr. Singer, he's going to live on eggs which are laid. I mean, from chicken which hens which lay 300 eggs a year. That's a problem. I'd rather give them birth control so that they don't have to go through the constant egg laying process. Anyway, the next
Hmm.
question is about India, right? From my outreach, we have a very one specific kind of person that we come across who literally own cows or are one generation away from owning a cow or one city away from owning a cow. So either their family owns one, or I mean they have a dairy whatever industry of their own, but they're limited to just one house, and there are thousands of people like this, right? So now when we argue with them, the only refrain that we hear is that our cows are happy, our bulls are happy, our calves are happy, and all of them are fed, and we consume them whatever their products only after uh, their needs are taken care of. So this is one of the commonest arguments I've had when I'm doing vegan outreach, right? And the end point for me is to convince them to let those animals go extinct
Hmm.
because their whole life is suffering, and these guys need to find alternate ways of food production, even if they're not running it as a business but for their own home needs.
Hmm.
Yeah. So how would you go about like addressing this particular thing?
Yeah. So are they're using them for milk? Is that correct?
Milk, yes. Milk,
Okay.
dairy. Milk has infinite number of derivatives here, so it's used in almost every recipe.
Yeah. So my reaction to that, my favorite go to is just imagining if it was humans. So asking them to imagine, okay, so what if your wife or your daughter or your mother, like some aliens came down, some kind of species that was more powerful than us, and they wanted to farm us, and they would imagine everything that they said about their cows. Oh, we keep them happy. We let the women watch their favorite TV shows, and we feed them food, but we connect their breasts to a machine and pump their milk out, and they get no say in that. I'm guessing most people would feel that that's not good. Now, if you add in the element of having this animal that's bred to do this going extinct, then with the human idea, you would just add in an element of these humans that this is happening to. Imagine that they were bred in a way to become so unintelligent that they can't survive on their own. It's still immoral to force them into this area, even if you're going to feed them and keep them alive. Because I imagine for myself, if a species came down and said they were more powerful than us, so they could overpower us, and they were just having me in a small area, I I don't think I would want to continue if I had no way to escape and eventually live my own life. Um, Feeding me and keeping me well is not good. It'd be like when there was slavery, and if you bought a slave and said, "I'm going to treat you really well. You can't leave. You're a slave. You're going to live here, but you're going to have the best food, and you don't have to work for me." There's something about that, keeping something that is sentient in a place where they can't leave, just for our own taste buds. So the only thing that I would find acceptable from that person you're talking to is if they were convinced they needed it for health. If they if
Uh,
they if,
so,
if they if they valued their own health above it. But if they're going to eat unhealthy ice cream full of sugar and stuff that's made from dairy, then they're saying, I'm willing to force this thing to be here for my own taste buds. And if they don't
yeah,
find that ridiculous themselves, then that's because they haven't thought it through.
the problem is it's very difficult to argue with them by giving them hypotheticals, because this is a part of this is ingrained in their lives. I mean, literally, there are a bunch of people telling me that they don't even tie their cows. I mean, the cows are free to go and they come back every night, and I mean, that is the argument. I mean, let's say they're
Mm,
saying the truth, right? Their calves are also well fed. They first feed the calves, and whatever extra milk is there, only that they use.
mm,
And the calves are also kept. They are not separated from the mothers at birth. So this is the argument that we get. I mean, it's not about, for them, the animals are living a very happy life, and
mm,
they're all vegetarian. They don't consume animal flesh.
mm.
So this is only about dairy, although that causes more suffering. I mean, I would rather they eat the cow rather than perpetuate its suffering like this. But the question is, it's very difficult to. I mean, unless I give them alternatives, I have no ground to stand on.
Yeah. No, it becomes trickier when you add in all the elements. Because yeah, if they don't remove the baby calf and the calf can drink milk, and there's not the emotional part of removing it from the mom, they're not using the calf for veal. Um, and are they still doing the forced in? Are they putting the sperm in by
No, no,
reaching
this
their
is
hand in?
natural. They
Okay.
consider it from bull and cow, and
Oh, okay.
yeah.
So yeah, I think the only element that would be worth that the only argument that even makes sense would be, are you forcing the cow to be in an area when you milk it? If you walk up to a cow in nature and there's no fences and it's just out in the wild, and you pretend you're a baby cow and you just put your mouth on its udder and you're going to drink milk from it. If it doesn't move, I compared to everything else in the world, I barely care. But obviously, I would think the cow would move. So if the cows are bred to be scared to move from you, or if you have to tie it to a rope, if you have to bring it into a building to milk it, then there's an issue. But honestly, I mean, there's a good chance the people you're talking to are lying to you. But let's assume they're not. If somebody has a huge amount of space where cows can go wherever they want, cows can mate on their own, give birth, feed their calves, and the only thing that these humans are doing are going up to the cow and getting milk from it, and the cow's not trying to take off at all, I would say I would call it the least of my worries, I guess.
Okay, fine, got it. I think I'm out of time. It's supposed to be 1.5 hours, right?
Oh, you're fine. I'm good for another like 20 minutes. It's
No,
up
no,
to you.
I'll have to go.
Oh,
It's very
oh,
late.
you're out of time. I see. Gotcha.
It's pretty late in India right now. Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. Well, I'll probably stay on here and answer some questions here, but let's do another talk, and I look forward to seeing you and Has talk as well.
Definitely, definitely. As soon as possible.
All
Thanks a
right.
lot.
Sounds good. Yep. Take care.